What's going up, guys? Welcome to the show. This is a Side of Fries podcast. We back. Another one here. Got another one for the books. And I got the one and only, absolute legendary, local comic in the North Carolina scene, Mr. Tony Castleberry. What's going on, brother?
What's happening, Alex? Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for calling me a legend. It makes me very uncomfortable. Right off the bat. No, that feels good. Thank you, man. Am I the oldest person on the podcast? I think you guys had Jim Payne in here, right?
Well, I haven't had Jim Payne yet.
Okay.
He hasn't been answering any of my calls, but no, he's been here in the studio before. I think the other old, and I don't want to say oldest because they're not really that old.
Men of a certain age or people of a certain age.
RJ?
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys had Mello in. He's close. He might be my age.
Yeah.
I just want to name all the comedians who are as old or older than me.
Are there more?
Probably not, actually, now that you bring it up. I'm in the running for probably second or third oldest, I would imagine, but young at heart, right?
Yeah, so you've been doing comedy for how long?
5 years. Yeah, but I've been around it forever.
Okay.
I mean, from the time, it's one of those typical stories, like when I was 11 or 12, heard Richard Pryor's, one of his first ones, the name is escaping me right now, I'll think of it, but I sneaked that out of my stepdad's record collection and listened to it, and, you know, it was all F words and sex and cocaine, and I had never heard about any of that stuff, and it just excited me. So I loved it from the very beginning. Is It Something I Said is the name of the Richard Pryor record. And from then I was hooked on comedy. And then I interviewed headliners for about 10 years. All the headliners that would come to good nights or play the theaters in Durham or Raleigh or wherever in North Carolina, I would interview them. I did that for 10 years. So I'm just like around shows and around comedians, but never did it myself until 2018.
Oh, shit. So you were like Nardward, but for the North Carolina, like,
I was in
comedy scene.
I was in it. Yeah. And, you know, I remember like people ask, like, what was the first show that you remember seeing? Carrot Top. Freshman year of college, and people can say whatever they want about that guy. He blew the roof off that place that night. It was incredible. So, you know, I've been kind of hooked on it from the very beginning. But then once I started working in it, you know, first interviewing comedians and then doing it myself, that just gives you a deeper kind of understanding of it. And I'm still wrapping my brain around it all. I feel like 5 years in sometimes you're just scratching the surface, you know? But I've made some strides here and there, I think.
No, yeah, because I would assume that just doing that for so long, like, you've had to have moments where you were just like, oh, I'm going to, open mic is this day, I'm just going to try it.
Chasing mics.
Yeah, I'm just going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was just moments where you were just like, nah, let me just wait a little bit.
Yeah, and I didn't start until I was 44.
Oh, really?
Which is not ideal. You know, typically you would want to start something sooner than that, but for whatever reason, you know, I didn't start it until really late. And there were definitely some moments early on that I had both of those things, like you said. I would drive to 3 or 4 different mics, which, you know, in North Carolina, not that easy to do because there just aren't that many opportunities in one city usually. But I would go from, you know, Greensboro to Raleigh to Chapel Hill and just try to hit as many as possible. And then there were other times pretty early on when you got a bad reaction from a crowd, you rethought the whole thing. It was like, maybe I'm not cut out for this, but I liked it too much to quit.
So would you say that back then, because you would, and I'm not saying that as like oh, that's so old. I'm talking about like just the differences in like scenes and how things are then and now. Would you say it was easier for people to start doing comedy then or now?
I would say now. I feel like overall people are just more open to anybody trying whatever they want to do. And I love that. And, you know, 5 years ago, social media wasn't what it is now. People think, oh, it's only been 5 years. Well, it's grown light years since then. So those opportunities are much greater. As far as getting up on stage, I mean, just by the sheer number of open mics we have, you know what I mean? Like, It's way more than when I started. Way more. So many more. In every city I'm talking about. All the cities that have comedy in this state, pretty much everyone I know of has more mics and more shows and more opportunities to podcast and things like that now than they did 5 years ago, you know?
So then, yeah, because I do agree with you. There has been a lot of open mic. Like, there's just new ones popping up every, like, couple of months or so.
Some would say too many.
But, I mean, at the same time, that's not, like, a
I'm
bad
kidding,
thing.
of course. Yeah.
But, like, no, I hear you. Because, like, on our docu list on, like, the Facebook
grows,
page,
right?
it just gets bigger and bigger. And I'm just like, I do have so many opportunity to go. It's just, even then, there's, like, a lot of people that would be like, I don't have time.
I
to go
don't,
do that.
and I hate it, but I have to be up early for work. I think you do too. Like the late night mics, I would love to go to those. I don't want to go to bed at 1 o'clock and wake up at 6. I just can't do that at my age. You know, I'll die.
No, I feel that 100%. I'd probably, yeah, because there are times where, as an electrician, like when I first started, I'd go to the house on mic and I wouldn't leave till like 2:30 because everybody's like hanging outside.
Yeah.
After the mic's over, and 5 a.m. rolls around and I got to drive a truck.
It's wild.
Like 2 hours to the job site, and it's just like, oh, I'm gonna kill.
And see now, that's a real job. I work from home. I just have to get up out of bed and walk 2 feet, and I'm acting like, oh, I can't stay out till midnight, right? Well, who am I fooling? I'm lazy. That's what we're talking. I guess I shouldn't hit the table on a podcast. I'm sorry. I'm very nervous now.
Oh no, it's okay.
I'm kidding. No, I really. It's just a matter of like, I love getting the 8 hours of sleep in because I didn't do that for years, and now that I have reaped the benefits of getting the actual 8 hours or 7 most nights, I feel better in the daytime. So. But there are times, though, I'll still go on, runs of weeks where it's like, I want to see and do as much comedy as possible. You know what I mean? I'm glad that I still have that spark. It'll die soon, I'm sure. I'm sure it'll die soon.
I mean, everything has a limit.
It does.
But, like, I don't mean that as like it's going to come soon. I mean that as like just try and, like, live it out. Till the very end.
Next week, I quit comedy. Right? Remember we had Tony on the podcast? The following week, he quit comedy. It's crazy.
At the end of this episode, it'll be like those memorial episodes where it's just like Tony Castleberry has
slow
quit comedy.
pan down, black and white.
The outro of the
still
music.
frame.
Oh, or like it goes like it's like the CSI like transitions where like it just goes grayscale.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Could you guys do that? That'd be fun.
I probably could. Yeah, we probably could.
That'd be fun.
For sure.
Bring an end to my comedy career. I booked 2 shows today, so not yet. Okay, not yet. Let me get these 2 shows in, then I can get back to you about putting my comedy career in a cemetery.
So one of the things I wanted to ask, because you have been doing it for 5 years. Obviously, that's 4 years more than me.
Okay.
My writing process has been fucking stagnant. Like sometimes it's like really good. I'll be like, okay, there's an idea. I'll write it down, and then the idea will get written, and then a couple days later, I'll be like, oh shit, well now this sucks. Does it get easier for you?
It has.
Okay.
Absolutely. And there are a couple reasons for that, in my opinion, at least how it works for me. The first thing is I am literally, any funny thing, I'm saying it into the phone or I'm writing it down immediately. People tell you that from the very beginning, and you're like, sure, I'll do that. And you don't. Your brain just isn't trained, I don't think, to work that way. I think that's something you have to work up to. So jotting those ideas down or getting them audio recorded right away, as soon as you think about them, as soon as you see that funny thing, as soon as you have that weird interaction at the bank, whatever it might be, immediately get that in the phone. And then the second part is I set aside a time or times each week where I am going to write, no matter what else is going on. I mean, obviously, if I had other things planned, but usually it's weekends. If, before a show or if I don't have a show, I will take the phone and I'll have all the recordings in there and I'll sit on my front porch. It's very cozy. Rocking chair. Oh, it's very nice, not to brag. I have 2 rocking chairs. One of you can come over and we can both sit there and write. But I'll have it's hundreds of recordings, and a lot of them are sets, but a lot of them are 5 second recordings, 15 seconds. Some of them go up to a minute if I really am on a roll. And I'll just go through each of those and play them and write them down. I transfer them from the phone to the notebook. And I don't, unless something really hits me creatively in that second, I don't take time to analyze it. I write the thing down, and I go to the next one, and I go to the next one. And I'll do that sometimes for hours, filling up just pages of a notebook. And we were talking about editing video before we started recording here. The editing process in that notebook is often, like you said, I'll look back at something and think, there's literally nothing funny about this. Not one thing. So you cross that one out. But you get enough of those where you have like a nugget of an idea or a real life thing that happened that you think is funny enough to take to the stage. And that's, in my opinion, how the jokes get, that's how they're born. That's how you start doing that. So, yeah, that process has gotten a lot easier. I'm also, I know for a fact that I am a lot better now at shortening the joke. Used to be way too wordy with everything. I'm a lot better at that editing. I'm a lot better at that editing now, which, that doesn't mean that the joke always has to stay as short as that. But for me, I want to get like that 15-second thing. I want to get a laugh as soon as possible. And I will write according to those terms now. I used to just be like, well, I have to give them the setup. I have to describe where I was. No, you don't. You don't need any of that. Whatever the funny thing was, get that up front as quickly as possible. And then if there are tags after that, that's great. But if it's only that 15-second funny thing, well, there you go. You got a 15-second chunk of your set. Move on to the next thing. I don't think there's any like infinite amount. The great thing about this is, and most artistic endeavors, there's no limit to the number of ideas. There are really no limits to it. Like, there are people who might say that, well, everything's been said in comedy. There's so much. It's like, man, that'll never be true. Ever. There's always an idea out there to be had that can be funny. You know what? And you mentioned that the whole, like, there's not anymore, like, nothing's really original. Everything sounds kind of like the same. Haven't you heard that too? Haven't you heard people say that? I hear that. And then sometimes I'll hear some people's jokes, like, they'll post clips or something like that. And then I'll watch another clip of, like, some other comedian in another state. Like, and I'll just be like, damn, why so many jokes are just about, like, the same thing. Yeah. That's sex, true. Like, or joking about themselves or stuff like that. And I'm just like, I really want to go out of the box, out of that, and then just kind of see if I could bring something new. Yeah, exactly. And that's the challenge, I mean, that's really where the challenge comes in. And I think the best way to do that, it sounds simple, but it's actually pretty tough to do, is just being you, because that makes it original. And that's the thing that I'm starting to realize in some comics, is that, like, them that they put on stage is fabricated. It's not, like, really them. So then whenever we go out to these hangs and stuff like that, and I get to see who they really are, it's like, dude, where's this on the stage? Exactly. Right. And so, like, I can't tell them that because they've done it for longer and they're a lot of more successful than I am. Yeah. I only get booked every once in blue moon, I'm sorry that I bragged about getting booked on 2 shows. Oh, I wasn't. No, dude. I wasn't flexing. No, man. Start displaying your flowers, man, because, like, displaying them sounds so. I love it, dude. The thing is like, people need you should feel that way. Selfless is the correct word, I think. Or no, selfish. Be selfish about it, because getting booked here in North Carolina is incredibly hard, because it's always so grateful, because there's so many people that get booked repeatedly, and it's like, well, duh, they deserved it. They're there. And sure, some people would argue that giving new people a chance to get booked is a good thing too. Yeah. But if you're booking just new people,
how long before so many people get booked and then it's just a bomb fest?
100%.
Yeah, it's a fucking what is it? Never mind, I was about to joke.
We can curse?
No, yeah, we can definitely curse.
Yes.
Yeah. What?
Oh, I just got a lot
The fuck,
more.
This isn't like a high school. Like,
Um,
this isn't a
but-
classroom. I'm not gonna tell you no.
if I curse, you guys kick me out.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a fucking bad noodle star on the chalkboard or something.
He
shit
said,
like
damn, on my podcast.
that. Nah, it's cool.
This guy said ass? What kind of heathen? But to go back to that thing you said about people being themselves, aren't your favorite comedians the people that you think are just being them?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I appreciate anyone who can do and act.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible to me. I'm talking about, like, it's not them, but they go out there and they tour that thing and they make that their thing. That's incredible to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the comedians I enjoy most are the ones who it just feels like a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like it's prepared. And I mean that on the local level and national, international touring headliners. The people that connect with me most and the ones that make me laugh and really invest in what they're doing are being their true selves. So that's how I feel about that, you know, across the board. And I heard in a documentary, I think it's called Dying Laughing, or maybe it's Misery Loves Comedy, one of those. But there's an old comedian, this guy, like, toured with Frank Sinatra and shit, like old school. And he was talking about the process, and he said, when you start comedy, whether you know it or not, you're doing an impression of a comedian you like.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that. I was like, oh, yeah, I see hints of this person, and I talk like that, and my cadence sounds kind of like this guy or whatever. But he said, you start, you're imitating another comedian, even if you don't know it. And then you let a little bit of yourself out.
Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of the
And
times
then you let a little bit more, right? And then eventually you're you.
whenever I go out to these mics and, you know, like sometimes I'll just be chilling there because, you know, there's nobody really to talk to.
Yeah.
Everybody's like prepping or everybody's like making sure they're focused in line at these
Right.
other mics.
I've seen that
versus
too.
me,
yeah.
I'm just chilling there on TikTok and then I'm seeing other people's sets and I'm like, oh, let me hop off because the last thing I want to do is take someone's persona. And even that's a terrible thing to do on
Yeah.
stage. It's just, you know, not being you on stage is the worst thing you can do to a set because
It
then people
is.
will catch on.
Yeah, they do. And I think what you're talking about there, like, you know, watching people and things getting into your brain, even though you didn't, I'm going to do that. You didn't say you were going to do that. I think the more you do it, the more that is really not something you concern yourself with. I think you get past that. Because it is about having, you know, your original voice. And the more, like, I thought that I started, I'm a recovering alcoholic drug addict, you know, I've got all this shit in my history that I immediately talked about in comedy. Like that was like going to be my angle, I thought, right? Is just brutal honesty and make fun of these crazy things that I did. And that was probably, you know, partially true. But I wasn't even close to talking about how I was really feeling, you know? I've only done that recently, 5 years in. And I think back to, and I listen painfully to some sets that I did from way back then, and they're mostly unlistenable, and I don't tell any of those jokes. There literally might be one or two jokes from my first year of comedy that I still tell. And even those have evolved, and I've rewritten them and added tags to them over time. So the growth process, if you do it enough and if you know, care about it and invest any time in it, the growth process is fast. Way faster than I thought it was going to be, especially as it pertains to tapping into who you really are, and letting that out there and finding a way to make that funny. And I'm not saying I have it figured out by any stretch. I learn all the time, both through doing it and through watching people who are better than me. But that's been a little bit of a mind-blowing situation for me. I did not expect to have this big of a turnover. I thought some of those jokes that did okay my first year, I was like, oh, man, that's going to be my closer forever. I'm going to close with this joke for as long as I do comedy. And I don't even tell that joke anymore. I mean, it literally can get turned over that quickly, you know?
I think because for me, the writing process is just super tough. I've always, because I'm just now getting to a point where like I have like 4 or 5 solid, like well-written jokes, and then I never do them on stage because I just get so into the moment that I just want to riff.
Well, I would say force yourself to tell those jokes. Not like in a fighting against your own brain kind of way, but I mean, the having to learn that fearlessness is tough. Like I bailed at Dirty Bull last Friday. First time this has ever happened. Bailed on a joke while I was telling it.
Oh, you know what?
Midway through the joke, I stopped. And I don't know. I was just overcome. And I realized as I was telling it, it wasn't funny. And it hit me, and I was like, I don't want to deliver a dud to these people. So I actually pulled up, and I think what I said was, that's too sad to be a joke. And luckily, they laughed at that. And so I was able to go to the next thing.
To the next one seamlessly, like not having to worry.
It seems, in fact, I bet some people there were like, did he plan that? Was not planned at all. The joke was, it'll probably bomb right now, but the joke was the last relationship I was in, there was cheating, first by her, but then by her again. Right? Like that. They did not laugh at that.
Okay.
No laughs. Zero. Silence. And that's when I followed it up with, this is too sad to be a joke. But the punchline is supposed to be first by her, but then by her again. And it was at that point I was like, you know what? I've got my pride. I'm going to date you for 2 more years, and then we can reevaluate.
Okay.
It's stupid, and it probably will bomb, but you guys smiled, and you know what? That's enough.
No, I feel that way too, because the last time I did Dirty Bull, there was a joke that I was talking about. It was about the time I got led on, because I feel like that just relationship jokes for me, I get a little too into it because they still affect me. There's a lot of shit that I talk about relationship wise that still fucking affect me today.
Well, everybody relates.
Yeah, like I tried doing a joke, and viewers that have watched the show obviously know the story of the Tennessee girl.
Okay.
The Tennessee girl, I've tried making jokes about that situation, and it just still fucking hurts. It's so fucking terrible.
I get it.
And then recently I'm starting to do the let on thing, and I'm just like, no, that's too close, because that story in itself is a different one.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I can't do relationship jokes because they just hurt.
That sounds like you're taking care of your mental health, first of all, and that's a good thing. So I think that's fine. I think it takes time for these things. Like, there were some things that happened at my grandma's funeral that I was like, this is fucking hilarious. And I still have not found a way to make them funny.
Yeah.
But I know they are, and I have them written down in the notebook. And when I'm ready to go in there and really dig in, I'll probably get some pretty good material out of that. But I'm just not ready to do that yet. And that's what that sounds like. But I will say that, like, I didn't, my reasoning for pulling back on that joke wasn't because I was too close to the situation or I cared too much. It was because it didn't get a laugh.
Yeah.
The part where I expected a laugh, nothing. And that still will throw me, And this time I wasn't able to finish the joke. And in a way, I'm glad I didn't, because I might have lost them for good. Instead, when I gave them that moment of vulnerability by saying that I know that didn't hit and you didn't like it, we'll move on to the next thing, that was fine. But if I had tried to complete that joke, it might not have been okay.
You know who, because when you say bail, there's only one comic that comes to mind that is really good at bailing out a joke and making it like seamless. And this is like not a like out of respect kind of deal. This is no disrespect. Dylan McIntyre, when he's telling a story.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, oh, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
And then everybody's just like kind of like laughing because
He's
like,
great at that.
Yeah, I got to figure out how he does that because there's a lot of times where like the shakes come in or like you're just not feeling it. And I'm just like, God damn it. How the fuck do you manage to just get by like that?
If I had to guess, I think that's just Dylan reacting naturally. I think that's just the way he's wired.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. And we all, when we see him do that, I've seen him do it too.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we all can, everybody does the thing. I know I've done it where you tell a joke and it doesn't get what you expect and you say that deserved more. People universally laugh at that.
Mm-hmm.
Out of uncomfortableness or because they genuinely think it's funny. Like that's kind of one of those go-to hack lines that will bail you out of that joke falling flat. Dylan's reaction when that happens, and there are a couple other comedians that do it too in our scene, that becomes a huge laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And how great is it to get a huge laugh out of something that just bombed? That's not easy.
If I can tell a joke, like all my jokes, and I can get somewhat of a laugh in between them, it doesn't matter if it's the punchline or something that I just say in between.
Yeah.
I call that a win.
Of course.
Because like,
Yeah.
if I can just get them to continuously laugh,
Yeah.
no pauses or anything like that, I killed.
I've also, along those lines, I think that whenever I've heard steady laughter throughout my set, as opposed to one or two huge laughs, there are some comedians who want the one or two
big laughs.
massive.
Yeah.
And I like that too. I also like I didn't give them a chance to breathe.
Uh-huh.
Laugh, 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 laugh. And the only way to really do that is, you got to write a bunch of jokes, obviously, but you also will have to do some things in between the transitions, commenting on what's going on in the room or whatever. That same Dirty Bull set, a woman had a phone that had a cricket sound.
Mm-hmm.
And when I took the mic, thank you, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Cricket, cricket, cricket. And I was like, that's not a great sound for comedy. Big laugh. And I was like, all right, we're off and running. So, yeah, those kind of things. I'm a lot better at that now, too, man. I used to just be very regimented and planned out. God, I talked to my therapist about this. I would over-rehearse sets to the point that it would make me anxious for the show. Mm-hmm. And thank God she helped me pull back from that. She was like, well, do you have the jokes worked before? And I'm like, some, sure. Mm-hmm. Do you have confidence that you have them memorized? Absolutely. I've gone over them, 10 times today. Mm-hmm. She's like, well, why are you torturing yourself with these constant rehearsals in your kitchen? You know what I mean? Because that's where I rehearse. I'll time my set in a kitchen. I'll do all the mannerisms. I'll do the hand. I mean, I literally would be that meticulous about it. I think you can overdo that. Mm-hmm. And I know that I did. And now going up there without that kind of over rehearsal, I still write down set lists and I still will give it at least once or twice. I'll rehearse the order of the jokes and for time to make sure that, I'm doing whatever I'm supposed to do time-wise. But once I have it down once or twice, I'm done, where it used to be literally 10 times. Mm-hmm. That was some nervousness. That was some anxious energy I was working out there. I don't have that anymore. Mm-hmm. Thank God. It's mostly gone. Not totally, but mostly.
I think because I also think back to a time, there was a mic that I went to and Matt White was there. Yeah. It was one of the Halcyon mics and it was full. It was full of comics too, but like there was some people there and people were bailing a lot or they were just like, well, I'm bombing. Like they'll acknowledge that they're bombing. Yeah. And there was so many comics.
It was happening repeatedly.
It was happening repeatedly. And I could hear Matt White getting annoyed. He's like, come on, guys.
Right?
He's like, pick it up. He's like, come on. Like, I don't need... Are we here to do comedy or are we here to self-loathe?
That's a pro.
And I'm just like, oh, fuck. I should probably not do that. And so now anytime I just like, that's just the first thing that pops into my head.
Yeah.
Don't be a self-loather.
Right.
Just commit. And even if it doesn't go through, fuck it. You just made it happen. So
Yeah.
it's like, shouts out to Matt White for that because he probably didn't know
He's
that
the
I
best.
heard. He probably does know that I heard that, but I did.
He's
And
the
that's
best.
It's a huge influence.
He's
on me.
my oldest comedy friend. I've known Matt since we both lived in Greenville in the like 2008, 9, 10 range probably. Yeah, he's great. And he is that way. He cares about it so much that he's not going to allow some bullshit like that to go down.
Exactly.
Even at a mic that may not be going well, he's like, no, we're going to snap out of this. I'm
He's
not
like-
going to have you guys bring me down.
He's
you
like
know?
the football coach that's seeing like
Yeah.
the kids like just draw back, and it's like pick up your fucking feet.
He's
like,
the
it's like
best.
one of those.
Yeah, he's really good that way, and I like having people like that around. Although I think there is something to be said for making the bomb funny, like leaning into the bomb. I've also heard that from some other veteran comedians. My buddy Eric Trundy in Greensboro, one of the best comedians I know. He told me that early on, and I didn't fully understand what he was talking about. I was like, no, you don't ever want to bomb, right? He's like, no, you have to. It's part of it. And I had heard that. And I didn't like think I was special or anything, but I did want to avoid it as much as possible. But if you can find a way to make fun of how poorly it's going, that can be fun to play with. But overall, when several people are doing that, that's a train wreck. You got to have somebody, a cheerleader, a coach like Matt White to pull you out of that, you know?
There's two people that come to my mind whenever I hear like experts at bombing. And not in a disrespectful way, like experts of like getting out of the
Navigating
bomb.
that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Weston Suggs. Oh man, I know his style of comedy is very like in your face, like like
unapologetic,
unapologetic,
but with a choir boy face, and skinny jeans.
Because when I was
I love Weston.
Because half of the year in the comedy, when I saw him popping up, I saw him at the Raleigh Real show over there at Clouds.
Victoria's thing,
And I remember sometimes, most nights, he would bomb, but he'd walk out of there and be like, that was nothing.
Didn't let it phase him.
Next night, got it. And then, I've also learned not to tell people like good set after they've bombed. Or I don't say good set at all because I'm afraid that
I only say it if it really went well.
I'm afraid of the conversation where it's like, oh, I didn't do that well. Like, and then they're just like that. And I don't want to be the guy that like pats on your back. Like, it's okay. Like, because
neither one of those is good in that moment.
It just makes me seem like I didn't really care. And I always care about my my fellow comedians, like stuff like that, no matter what.
That's fantastic.
And so like, that's just stuff that I've learned over the years.
That's really supportive, and I think that's important. I definitely did not, whenever I bomb, especially early on, I did not want to hear anybody saying good set to me. It was the last thing on earth I wanted to hear, closely followed by it'll be okay. I don't want to hear either one of those things. I want you to let me wallow for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it might be. I'll snap out of it. Fingers crossed. Let's hope I snap out of it. Let's hope it's not my final bomb. Like that was the one that sent him out of comedy forever. But no, I don't want to hear anything. I just want you to let me be, and I'll either come back to the crowd and we can hang out, or I'll drive home and eat a pint of ice cream. You know what I mean?
Because I apply that rule to people also when they're grieving, because that's the same thing. Nobody wants to hear that everything's going to be okay. Like they would have wanted this. I tell people, when people, like friends of mine have like relatives or friends that pass away, I always tell them, listen, I know you don't want to hear it. I'm not going to tell you this, but I will tell you that for whatever reason, you need just someone to talk to, an ear. You just need to rant about your job or anything like that. Not even about the whole
or do
passing.
something normal.
Just reach out, because I will never tell you it's going to be okay.
That means everything.
Yeah.
That's all anybody wants to hear in that situation. You don't want to hear like, I when Grandma died, my grandparents raised me, and my grandma was my favorite person on earth, and she died 4 years ago, and it was brutal. I mean, I started therapy right after that, and I don't think those things are disconnected. There was a reason I was spiraling, but I didn't want to hear people go on and on about like, oh, I remember your grandma when she did this. Like those things are nice to hear, but right then, right after it happens, I just need to be alone. I remember going legit catatonic the day after Grandma died when family came over. This is good for a comedy podcast. But seriously, this is some real shit. Like family was over, house full of people bringing food, the whole thing, the typical grieving thing. I'll never forget sitting in my childhood bedroom watching TV and not being able to speak to anybody. My aunt would walk in. Hey, Tony, how you doing? My mom walked in, sat down on the bed. I couldn't even bring myself to say a word. And some people would interpret that as, you're just an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I kind of interpret it when I look back on it. But I just did not have the brain power or the spirit in me to talk to anybody about anything. I just had to shut it down. Now that's dangerous, obviously, because if you stay in that headspace, we know where that leads.
Yeah, it's gonna stick.
Right. It's sometimes hard to pull out of it. But I've also learned to manage that through therapy and just life and living it. Like you allow yourself to be that way for. I'll even say it beforehand. Like, all right. You can be pissed off, sad, depressed, anxious for an hour or 30 minutes. And I'll literally give myself that much time to feel that way and just dig into it. I had, rage issues, and it was like I can be mad and I'll hit a speed bag or punch my mattress for 30 minutes. But then after that, you're going to move on. You're going to get on with your life. You're going to go outside. You're going to do whatever. I know this sounds like therapy talk because it is.
No, and there's no problem with that. Like,
it works.
Yeah, like the thing that, and this isn't just you, everybody that has been on here, we get deep and we talk about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, isn't this a comedy podcast? Yeah, we're funny people. We're comedians. But like, at this point, like, I'd much rather figure out what's going on with any of my guests. Like,
isn't it interesting?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because then you just never know. You might
Death
just think,
is interesting. How we deal with it is interesting. You know?
And like for me, because, I recently had a grandfather pass away and I didn't know him that well, but the emotions that my dad had, because it was his dad, it tore me apart.
You feel that through him.
Yeah, because I don't want to see my dad upset.
No.
I don't want to see him sad.
Yeah.
Granted, if he would have passed away when I was younger, during like, my parents' divorce and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't have looked at him that way.
Yeah.
But like now that I'm like an adult, I start thinking, damn, that might happen to me soon. Like my parents are getting older as we speak,
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I'm old enough to where I've dealt with several of those. Like I said, my grandparents raised me. Both pops and grandma are dead. And I tell this story every time I talk about grandma's death because we were talking about how interesting this is. I had a cat that I loved die, and my grandma died within 6 months of each other. And I cried more for grandma, but I cried harder and more intensely for that cat. And I've asked my therapist and I've asked other people, like, why? Grandma's winning on the crying scale. Let's be very clear. I don't want to misconstrue what I'm saying. Like, there were more tears, but the intensity after my cat died, man, I'm like, I had that. I guess it's because probably something as simple as, I was around that cat daily. I saw grandma every week, 2 or 3 days a week, but I wasn't around her every day. Maybe that's the explanation, but it's still just weird to me. Like, am I that fucked up that I'm more attached to my cat in some way than I was to grandma? I don't know.
I wouldn't say so because, like, think of it as like this. Your grandmother, was watching over you, making sure you were okay. So there was a lot more emotion. Like, say if it reversed, say
where
if
you're
you
going.
passed away. say if you passed away and your grandmother was just as emotional as you were with the cat.
Yeah.
But then the cat passes away, and your grandma didn't know about the cat. You had a more responsibility for the cat, and that's why it hit you harder.
Dude, you just explained this in a way that my therapist never could. Nobody else in my life ever explained that as well and as succinctly as you just did. And now it makes total sense to me. And it gives me some fucking peace about this situation.
I mean, listen.
Thank you, Alex. Holy shit. I did not expect to be healed today.
I mean, listen.
Oh, my God. I feel lighter.
You
know what I mean?
Listen, the biggest thing for me is just making sure that everyone that I care about is okay.
You're the best.
So
we need to do this weekly.
I won't charge you the hour.
Why'd you laugh? I'm coming back weekly. We don't have to do it here. You can come to my house, or I'll meet you at yours.
We can go eat lunch. Listen, man.
Do you take Blue Cross Blue Shield? Because my benefits are pretty great.
I mean, put me on that list, and then I'll take care of you.
Hell yeah. No, that makes total sense now, honestly.
Yeah, because for me...
Because I was responsible for her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. And Grandma was 89, and she had been sick. So it's that thing that people talk about when they have an older parent or grandparent. It's like, well, you kind of expect those things to happen at age 89. My cat was 10. Mm-hmm. She went from being perfectly healthy to having a tumor and dying in a month. And it fucking floored me, man. Like, I remember just not believing it was real, just not allowing myself to believe it. I was like, she's going to pull out of this. Mm-hmm. She's just getting sicker the whole time. And then eventually she wasn't even able to walk on her own, and I was just, to call it heartbroken doesn't even really describe it, because I had that cat for 8 years while I was drinking, 2 years while I was sober. Mm-hmm. So those last few years of my drinking were the worst. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's when it was really dicey about, am I going to live or am I going to go to jail for a very long time? All these things were on the table from all the shit I was doing. So there were times, talk about getting dark. There were times when I felt like the only reason I was staying alive is because I had to take care of that cat. Mm-hmm. I felt that, that was a real thing, that everything was so desperate, and I was drinking to a point where it was like I was blacking out 4 times a week. Mm-hmm. It was bad. But I kept going because, I want to take care of her. So she got 2 years of me sober and there and present, and I'm really grateful for that. But I also obviously look back and, regret, well, God, now, I kept her alive, but what kind of cat dad was I? You know what I mean? When I was drinking, I could not have been a good cat dad. Mm-hmm. Not the kind of cat dad that I obviously am now.
You realistically had what I would call a trailer park father life with your cat.
Yeah.
Because think about it, and I watch Shameless now. I don't know if you ever heard of that show. Mm-hmm. The father of that show is a piece of shit.
Real deadbeat, right?
Yeah, real deadbeat, and he's got 4 or 5 kids living in this big house, and it's a rundown house. They're all have problems of their own and stuff like that. But as the show progresses, you're kind of realizing that the dad's starting to flip, but it's very minuscule.
Slow, right?
Yeah, and so it's when I hear all my past friends going through their pops being oh, he was such a dick, he used to beat the fuck out of me, this and that.
Yeah.
And then now, we're all adults now, the dad is taking it easy, he stopped drinking, stuff like that.
Right.
This is a story that I've heard many times.
People can change.
And so and that's why whenever you're explaining why the cat's death hit you so hard, is that you spent 8 of those years, drinking, stuff like that, things that you regret now. Mm-hmm. And in those last 2 years, you gave that cat the best years of its life.
Yeah, exactly. Thank God that I was able to be present for at least a couple years there. And the dad thing, my mom had me when she was 16. Mm-hmm. No dad ever. Don't even know his name. Mm-hmm. And there are times, D.L. Hughley has a joke from way back. This is probably from the 90s, where it's not going to be funny now, but he essentially says in the joke, he's like, he's doing Kings of Comedy or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. He's on this big stage and he's a famous comedian. He goes, I never knew my dad. He gave up on the wrong motherfucker, right? Mm-hmm. And whenever I was feeling low, I was like, you know what? I think my dad got it right. He gave up on me. I think he was right. I don't feel that way now, obviously, but there were times I was like, yeah, he got out, you know? That was smart of him. But no, that stuff, obviously, it's whether you want to really deal with it or not, can be a tough decision. And I didn't deal with it, and that's why I drank for as long as I did. That's why I drank and used drugs that way. It's because I was avoiding that kind of neglect that I felt when I was a kid. So then once I quit booze and started to see things more clearly, better able to deal with those things. And you know what? Life got better. It got a hell of a lot better when I started not ignoring these things that, yeah, it makes you uncomfortable. You don't necessarily want to go into your therapist's office and unload this shit and have them maybe tell you that the way you thought about something was wrong. But you know what? I need to hear those things sometimes. It helps me. It gives me lessons to get better in life day to day. And that's the only way I can really take it. You know, that old AA thing of one day at a time, it's cliche, but if I worry about a month from now, that's a problem. I literally need to worry about the hour in front of me, and I'm not drinking today, and that's the best course of action for me, you know. I am very stoned, for what that's worth. Weed doesn't count.
Well, actually, I'm not. I ran out of my pen. Like a couple
man,
weeks ago. But it's all good.
I'll sell you some weed.
One of the things I wanted to, one of the things I did want to touch on, because it's heard a lot in your sets, is your sobriety. So how long?
I quit in 2016.
Okay.
The year Trump was elected. So I picked the perfect year to get sober. You know what I mean? Like, thank God it was nice and smooth, no chaos. It was very peaceful time to get sober. And when I say sober, I don't want to front like I do smoke weed. But that's it. And anybody who knew me back then, it was clear from the time I was a teenager that alcohol was my problem. So, I quit in 2016. I quit cold turkey. I didn't go to any meetings. I wasn't even thinking about going to therapy at all during that time. I think my mind and my body had just had enough.
My body.
I had been to jail a few times, few DUIs, not to mention the fact that, you know, I was always broke and I ruined one relationship after another, and could never really just break out of this funk that I was in. But do you want to hear the story of the night I quit?
Yeah, let's go for it.
I drank 20 beers.
Oh, shit.
I didn't have my license. My license had been taken for a DUI. I walked to a bar that was about a mile away. I drank 6 beers there. And I'm talking the tall, high alcohol content. I didn't mess around. I was only a beer drinker for the most part, but the beer I drank was that expensive high alcohol stuff. The
Hell Yes Man.
Yes,
and stuff like that.
Hopium and all that stuff. So I drank those 6, then I walked back to my apartment, and I had 14 beers at my house, drank all those. And I sat them all on a table. All the empties, I just sat them on a table. And it took up most of a table, you know. And Alex, I'm not kidding, I did not feel drunk at all. I felt stone sober after drinking 20 beers in like a 10-hour span. And I just remember looking at all those cans and bottles and not feeling anything from it. And I was like, I just decided right then and there. Alcoholics talk about having that moment of clarity. that was mine, you know? And I said, this isn't working for me anymore. I have to stop this. And I quit just like that. And those first 2 weeks, man, were brutal. I'm getting like clammy and shaky thinking about that because it was very hard. I had those typical cravings and was literally shaking and cold sweats and sick. Headaches, the worst headaches. Even the weed that I was smoking would not take away the headache pain. It was brutal. But I fought through that, and then, man, after 2 weeks, I felt amazing. So much more energy. Skin cleared up. I lost 17 pounds of alcohol weight in 3 weeks. Just gone. I didn't diet. I wasn't working out at all. It was literal beer weight that fell off of me.
I was going to say, because like 20 beers is like 18 loaves of bread or something like that.
It's a lot,
it's a
right? All those hops.
Yeah, brother, you had a Subway in your stomach.
The whole franchise was in there. But yeah, that was it. And despite my therapist telling me 100 times that I should try AA, I never did. I still haven't. I still think about it. But weirdly enough, man, comedy helped. Because the thing that I've found pretty much across the board, no matter where I've done comedy in this state, I have found supportive people. And they could be wasted. I remember doing this with a couple people. I was like, oh, I'm going to how am I going to do comedy now? It's in bars, and I don't drink, and literally sometimes everybody else is drinking. Never once had an issue with it. Every person that I told that I had this problem, and I was writing for a website in Raleigh at that time. It's now defunct. I wrote about this. I in full detail, just explained this whole situation. Really kind of laid it out there for everybody to see. Never had an issue with somebody like, oh, come on, man, don't you want to drink? Everybody was like, the opposite happened. People would ask, is it okay if I drink around you? And of course it is.
I think I asked you that question like
it's so thoughtful.
The third time I've met you.
It's so thoughtful, and I'm blown away. I mean, I guess maybe my self-esteem should be higher, but it still blows me away that somebody would care that much about what I may need in a moment. But I don't care. It doesn't affect me at all. I will say, after 5.5 years, I relapsed. In December of 2021, I just, I don't know. It was almost like I planned it, but not really. I'm the only person who plans their relapse, I guess, in a way. But I did a show, and on the drive home, it was almost like my car went on autopilot. I didn't even feel like I was driving the car. I just went to a Sheetz. I bought a 12-pack of Hopium, and I drank them all that night. And I got wasted that weekend, blackout drunk. And then took the week off, didn't drink that week, so it didn't like fully get out of control. But the following weekend, did the same thing. Got wasted again the following weekend, to the point that after I drank all the beer that I had in the house, I started drinking the cooking wine.
Oh, shit.
Old addict stuff, man. Like, you know, the shit that I did when I was deep, that came back. And when I remember thinking, as wasted as I was, when I started drinking the cooking wine, I was like, well, you're going to have to make a decision right now. Are you going back to that way of life, or are you going to go the path that clearly was better for you for those 5.5 years? And I pulled up, and I was good ever since. And I like to joke about the fact that I relapsed mainly because I wanted to see if the taste of alcohol had changed. And you guys, it got better. So much better. Oh my God. But no, that's
I won't lie to you. I feel like it was better that you kind of just knew that this was going to happen rather than it catching you by surprise.
that would have been worse.
Because, yeah, I was about to say, if it caught you by surprise, you wouldn't have been able to catch it
I think
at
you're
that
right.
second time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if I had been blindsided by this, I would have probably continued that. But the fact that I was able to stop after that initial relapse weekend, that gave me a little bit of hope that, like, all right, you're not going back to that in full. You slipped. I mean, I think the relapse rate for pretty much anything is so high. But I really, there was also in therapy, we talked about this, and I think my therapist is right. I think maybe I got a little overconfident. I maybe thought that I had it beat, you know, and the truth of the matter is that's why people who, well, some people say this, you never say that you used to be an alcoholic or I was an alcoholic. You are a recovering alcoholic versus a practicing alcoholic. And like, I don't count my days anymore, and I don't get that hung up in the terminology. But that recovering thing keeps me grounded. It reminds me, without relapsing, that if you really have an addiction, and I know I truly do, to alcohol, you never really have it beat. You have to practice that kind of willpower every day. And of course it gets easier, and it's nowhere near as hard to do as it was in the beginning. I'm in a much better place as far as that goes, but I am never going to say that I have it beat, you know, because that's when you slip up and you go back down that path.
You know what I think is funny? When people post their sobriety countdown, and it's just like...
I used to do it.
They're just like 48 months into it, and it's like, just say 2 years.
Yeah.
Just say 2 fucking years, dog.
Yeah. Well, that's 24 months. But, I'm sorry.
I'm an idiot. As you know, I am
48 months
stupid.
is more than 2
I'm
years.
Dumb.
I don't want to make this a math
You
lesson.
guys know this. I'm an absolute fucking
Your
idiot.
point is well taken, though. And I used to post, I think that early recovering alcoholics and addicts do that a lot. Like, I remember when I made it to 30 days, I could not wait to share that shit on Instagram. I was like, Facebook too. It's like 30 days, and you get all the likes, and everybody's like, hell yeah, congrats. You get a year, bro, so many likes. I was in the like economy in a way. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't coming from a genuine place. I felt good about having a year sober. I had not had a year sober since I was 14. That's the truth. So I was proud of it, but I'm not going to lie that there wasn't a little bit of an added benefit of getting all those likes. You know what I mean?
No, I feel that because, like, when I post gym pics, I'm purposefully posting, like, half of it's like, yeah, I want to keep track of my progress, make sure, like, I'm on the right track. But also, I really like the fact that people are reaching out, like, oh, good shit, keep going, keep grinding.
Right.
You know, and that everybody feels that way when they put an achievement on their story or anything like that. It's just human nature.
That's the way I like social media. That's really the only thing I like about social media. That and being able to promote shows and seeing funny things, that's all great. But yeah, I think, you know, we've all heard about the dangers of wanting those likes too much. So as long as you can ride that fine line between that, I know that when those first couple of years I was posting, you know, I did this thing. God, it's cringy to think about now. Or maybe not. Maybe people like it. But now that I think about it, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I would mark X's for each sober day, literal, like with a Sharpie on my calendar, just marked. And so at the end of the year, I would have my phone turn on, and you'd see January with all the X's, and I would flip the page, and I would just film me flipping
each page
through the whole year, you know?
That's like when people get their first big check and they just like want to show like all the money that they just got kind of deal.
But I made people sit around for a minute doing this. Who has a minute, right? But no, it was sincere in the moment. But I got a Facebook memory about doing that. And I'm like, oh, did I really do that? Now that seems a little bit wonky to me because I've got a little bit more experience with sobriety. But I'm also not going to shame anyone for posting being 5 days sober. Honestly, if you've been an addict and you get 5, that first day was, man,
fucking terrible.
So hard. When I went from drinking every day for 30 years to not drinking, oh God, it was it felt impossible.
I know for me, because I have a terrible eating habit. I had one.
Food's tough, man.
Yeah, like I used to eat out all the time. Taco Bell was always on the rotation.
100%.
Like, when DoorDash got introduced, that was just another
next level.
Thing, another issue. And so like now I'm a little bit easier on that.
Yeah.
But like back then I was DoorDashing every day. I was spending like $200 a day just eating.
Oh, man.
It was fucking terrible.
That's
like,
rough.
And it's not because the food was expensive. DoorDash is just expensive as fuck.
It is.
And so like,
but it's so convenient.
It really is. I live,
So
in
convenient.
Morrisville. Like that's where I stay at. There's just like hella Indian food restaurants,
Oh,
there's,
the
like, pizzerias, and
best.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Asian food's just all over the place. It's so fucking nice.
Yeah, it is great. Another thing that I changed in this whole process was I make most of my meals now. I never would have imagined doing that when I was drinking. That would have never been a consideration. I'm not a good cook, but I'm adequate. You know what I mean? And that's helped me a ton. So yeah, man, it's I had the relapse, but I quickly got back on the wagon and haven't really thought about drinking in well over a year now. And just hope to keep that going, knock on wood.
Shouts out to you, man, because I know that's
Appreciate
incredibly difficult.
It's
journey.
hard. It's really hard.
A lot of people, they'll hear like people, going through like sobriety and they'll just be like, oh, that's like an easy thing to do. I don't drink that often. It's like, how fucking ignorant do you got to be?
They don't understand addiction. Because and I don't even think I understood it until I tried to quit. Like I read books about it and, just consumed a lot of literature about, I bought pill books to like, oh, that pill does that. I got to get that pill. But then I actually read the how hard it is to quit some of these things. It's like it becomes such an ingrained part of your life that you can't imagine life without it. It really can be that stark, and I felt that way about alcohol for sure. Now, part of that was being a little fatalistic, like, oh, I'm going to crash and burn and go out early and, that whole kind of suicidal thing. But once I was able to break free of that, I saw how pointless all that was. And self-indulgent, you know what I mean? It's just, it really becomes self-indulgent after a while. And when I started feeling that, I was like, I don't want to be douchey like that. It felt douchey.
There was a thing that I was seeing a lot growing up was that the treat yourself quote.
Yeah.
Where it was like, what's one going to do like to hurt you or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that, that applies to just about any kind of addiction, money spending, food, alcohol.
It's around us so much.
Often.
Yeah. It's really hard. And anybody who struggles with it, I sympathize, man. Empathize too. Any kind of thighs you got, I got it for those folks because is there another empathize, sympathize? I don't want to monopolize. Capitalize, that's bad too. Let's just say I empathize. I do though. Honestly, man, it's like I understand that struggle. And for anyone, the people who are like, it's just a choice. All you got to do is choose not to do it.
Fuck those guys.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, have you been addicted to anything? God bless you if you haven't. Honestly, more power to folks who aren't addicted and have never been addicted to anything. I envy them. I'm one of the unlucky ones, or maybe I chose some of the addiction, but I know how hard that is. So it's not flippant. I don't say any of those things flippantly. I understand that struggle. So can you help me break my marijuana addiction?
I could help you stop it.
Yeah.
But
how? You fix my cat grandma grief situation.
Me personally, because I have friends that smoke all the time. There's one friend of mine, who I don't really talk to anymore. He's kind of mad at me because I,
You told him he had to quit smoking weed. He's going to get mad.
No, I told him he couldn't live with me.
Because of his weed consumption?
No, because he kept asking me for money and shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a different story. But he he's always spending his money on weed and video games, and so I couldn't help him. Me and a couple of other friends, we also struggle with that. We used to live with each other, and every day we were always smoking, and so obviously we were part of the problem. So after a while, we all kind of were just like, we just need to take it easy.
Yeah.
I noticed that I was getting even more dumber than I am now.
Yeah.
I would some of my words would get jumbled up, and I'd realize that I had a slur.
Oh man.
I already struggled with dyslexia growing up, so just that. The amount of brain cells I was losing, just for smoking constantly, because it's okay to take a puff every once in a while.
That's pretty much how I do
a week
it.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
So honestly, if you aren't smoking every day and you aren't noticing that it's affecting your life,
yeah, it's not.
It's not a problem.
I was kind of joking about that, but there have been times where I was like, I said you couldn't be addicted to marijuana. You absolutely can. I've turned the corner on that. I say that as a person who smokes a few times a week. But no, I said that jokingly. I don't need help with any more addictions. Wink, wink. I'm good, guys.
I just feel like if it's an addiction, it's just ruining. It's ruining your livelihood. If it's not, then it's not an addiction. It's
Sure.
Just, it's like video games. Some people really take video games seriously, and then it becomes something that just takes over their life.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's not a bad thing. It's just something that needs to get worked on.
I'm addicted to listening to podcasts.
That's a good thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did I download 17 podcasts today? I have a problem. Nah, anything can be taken to, if you're right. If it affects your life the way that alcohol was affecting mine, clearly unmanageable, criminal, literally, and a literal threat to me staying alive, you got to change that, or something will come along that'll change it for you, aka going to jail and all of the things that come along with that. It was just I thought I had several bottoms, the DUI obviously one, and so many others. But it's so weird that night that I decided to quit. It was just a normal kind of night. Abnormal in the fact that I drank 20 beers and didn't feel drunk. That's clearly abnormal. But it wasn't like I got in a fight or I wrecked a car. I mean, I had done those things drunk, but not that night. Like I said, I literally think my body and mind had just had it. Done. I had no other way out. I had to make a major change.
Yeah, for me, I think because I had recently went to a party with my pops, my dad, and it was for my stepsister. Well, I don't really call her a stepsister. She is my sister, kind of deal.
Yeah.
But she is legally she's a stepsister.
Yeah.
And so it was it was a catch up for a quinceañera that she had, because in 2020 obviously nobody could be around each other.
Right.
So we were just making up for that. And I got super fucking drunk around my pops. I
No
remember my
way.
dad telling me, he was like, after he saw me with my second beer, he's like, remember, you got to drive. He's like, I was like, I got you. And then I get super drunk. And then in my head the entire night, I was like, don't fuck this up for dad. Don't fuck this up for dad.
Oh, wow.
And so by the time I got tired and I was still drunk, I told my dad I'm good. I got in my car and I noticed, me being responsible, I was like, okay, there's a parking lot literally right next to here. I don't want my dad to see me sleeping in my car. I'm just gonna, my car is a 2023 car, so it has the auto steering thing, and all I have to do is press the gas and it moves on its own. I was like, I just gotta drive up 1 block and take a nap. And I did it. There was no cars on the road, anything like that.
Wow.
Granted, it's fucking terrible for anybody to be drunk and drive.
Believe me,
but
I know.
I just didn't want to sleep there because it was in a gated area. It was gonna close by the time he left.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to disappoint him.
I
So I
get
just
that.
drove up and I was like, I'm safe.
Yeah.
I made a couple Instagram stories about, just
Of course.
me fucking around.
Of course.
And, I peed in a bush and took a nap. Woke up 8 o'clock in the morning and was like, where the fuck am I?
Oh, my God.
And then I was just like, let me go get this McDonald's breakfast and just go to the gym and then go to work.
There you go. I mean, that's a solid rebound. I'll tell you this one. This is the worst one. My second DUI, I was passed out behind the wheel in the middle of an intersection.
Wow.
Everybody who's listening to this is like, oh, this guy's a real piece of shit. Yeah, and it was 2 p.m. on Easter Sunday.
Oh, fuck.
Bro, I mean, you talk about rock bottoms. That was one. But that's how strong addiction is. I didn't quit then. After I had to spend the night in jail, the next day when I got bailed out, friend picked me up, took me to her house, drank wine. The next day.
Oh, shit.
I could not stop. That's what I'm saying. That, like, we talk about being addicted. To me, I mean, I'm not saying that mine is the saddest or the worst or the most addicted story, but to me, that is the picture of addiction. When you're presented with a million things telling you how bad this is for you, and you keep doing it, that's an addiction, you know? Can we cut that out? I don't want people...
Because
I do have to go soon. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, we're good. We're good.
I got to be in Raleigh at 8:30.
I got you.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I do have one is because I'll end it off here because you know me, alcohol is like. So I've always had a lot of problems with alcohol and family and friends, you know, stuff like that. My brother, he dealt with his own thing. That's why like he's kind of improved now. He dealt with his own thing, and that's why I didn't want to disappoint my dad, is because my brother went through his own thing.
Yeah, most families have it, you know.
Yeah, I had a friend, her name was Sydney, longtime friend. I'd known her since elementary school. We were pen pals for a while. She had moved away. She was moving to Europe, and she took like her and her dad were just driving to the airport. She gave me this jacket, and one of my friends, actually, I left it in a friend's car, and they sold it because they needed some money really quick. It was the only jacket that I had from her.
I love needing money real quick. I've been there too. Like, man, I gotta sell these shoes. I need money real quick.
But she'd passed away because they got into a really crazy accident. The father survived, but they got into a really crazy accident. And the last thing I ever got from her was a text message saying, "Here, I'll let you know when I get to the airport."
Oh man, that's brutal.
And so like to this day, like anytime I'm in that car, I'm just like, I can't move.
Yeah, when I talk about drinking and driving, believe me, all the shame. You know what I mean? But if I'm going to be honest about it, I did it so much all the time. Because to me, I had to drive to get more alcohol. Most of the time, whenever I was driving drunk, I would say 90% of the time it was to buy more booze. So in my brain, that made sense. You know what I mean? I know it makes no sense at all, and I should have thought about other people more than I did. I endangered who knows how many people. I'm so lucky that I didn't kill myself or somebody else. You know, there were several times I would wake up the following morning and there would be a dent or the bumper is off. You know, and I wouldn't remember. No idea how it happened. And even that didn't make me stop. It's crazy. And again, I hope that people will still let me into their shows after hearing what a piece of shit I am. I'm hoping that other people will have me on their podcast, but really I just want to do this one over and over again.
Well, Tony, listen, I'm happy that you're still kicking, you're still around.
Yeah.
You know, you've beat this huge hurdle.
Trying to.
And, you know, honestly, there are other comedians that have done a lot worse and are still doing their own thing. So honestly, man, I think you're good, dude.
I appreciate that. We got to make sure my mom doesn't see this.
Well, I don't think I'm that big yet, but
okay.
But I mean, you know,
I'm not going to show it to her. Can we all make a vow right now? Don't show this to my mom.
We're not showing this to your mother.
Perfect. Thank you, man. I had a blast.
Listen, Tony, do you have any shows or anything that you want to plug?
Is it coming out this week? Next week, probably. Week after that. Is it coming out in August?
Probably.
I'll get back to you about my shows.
All right, cool. I'll put them in the description.
I'm
and stuff
sure
like
I'll
that.
have plenty. At Tony Castleberry. TonyCastleberry on Instagram and Twitter. I never post, so please follow me.
And if
you can find stories though.
And if you guys are in the Raleigh area, he's always at the open mics around there.
Oh yeah.
Durham area, you could catch him anywhere. It's on. He's so joyful to watch, bro. He's really, truly, you are a master.
I appreciate that, man. It's just me. It's more and more of me, and I'm finding that people like that. Not all, but people like the more of me that I'm letting out up there, and that feels good. So yeah, I hope to continue to do it. It's helping keep me sober, and as we just heard, I need all the fucking help I can get. So.
Well, listen, Tony, I appreciate you coming by the studio today.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
For the viewers, appreciate you guys watching. If you guys would mind just subscribing to the channel, Manly Girly on YouTube, giving us a like, comment. Like I said, we're moving out of YouTube soon, so just keep an eye out for that. But on the other end, appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a good one. Peace.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, guys.